Hey, y'all, welcome to Challenge Accepted, the podcast where we challenge each other to a new movie or TV show every week. We also react to the latest and greatest, and that is what we're doing today. I'm here with Thomas. How you doing, Thomas?
Hey, what's going on, man? Yeah, I think gosh, this finale was something. This was some of the best television I think I've seen this year. And God, Severance just always finds a way to end the season in such a crazy way. Yeah, what do you think of it?
Yeah, it's Severance is very well made. I don't know if I enjoy it, but it's
Oh,
well done. I was really struggling
interesting.
with this actually afterwards, and it kind of reminded me, how like that with the Spider-Man, where you and me
Yeah,
both left theaters thinking like, I'm not as hyped as everybody else is about that. I think that's what
yeah.
this was for
Yeah.
me too.
Oh, interesting. Man, I loved it. I thought it was really freaking good. And man, but I think what I love about this is it doesn't really just like spoon feed you information. Like it's
Yeah, that's
something,
for sure.
yeah, we've gotten, it's kind of a complaint that goes on with like some Disney Plus shows.
Right,
Is it like just tells you like I feel this way or I say,
right.
this one is there's a lot of callbacks to things that they've already referenced in previous episodes. There's things that you just have to know because they've said it in other places and you have to make that connection yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate that, but there are some thinking moments in this
Yeah.
show. It's a little extra work sometimes, and I just appreciate it though.
And then another thing I think that might be hurting it as well is I'm also in the midst of watching some of the greatest television you could be watching. We just finished Invincible. We have White Lotus right now,
Oh
which I don't
yeah,
think misses a shot ever. So we're
yeah.
we're sitting against some really good shows. So if you're not hitting on every single cylinder, then I'm not happy. But I do want to say, when it comes to this show, to me, it's like when I'm watching it, I am actually literally vocalizing my opinion on shots. Like, man, that shot's a good shot, or like, ooh, great
Yeah,
choice with the score here. Like, I'm literally saying these things out loud. It's crazy. But there's something about
yeah.
like where I could see like this thing is masterfully created. For some reason, it's not coming together in the same way. And the
Mm,
way I likened to it when I was sitting there with my thoughts was like, I think I can go into a museum and see a piece of art and say like, that is a masterful piece of art, but I won't
mhm.
have it on my walls. Instead, I've got like the blueprints for a Game Boy over here, and I've got my favorite comic books over here. Like it's not what I would have in my house, but I can recognize
Right.
that it's very well made.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's fair. And that's the whole thing with art, right? It's subjective.
Right.
There's things that are objectively done well, to your point, like if you're looking at a painting, the lines, the way they blend colors, like that kind of thing. But
Right.
this sometimes it just doesn't hit you the same, and I think that's fair. This was a very different episode. They've had some different episodes this season. With the Cobell episode,
Mm-hmm.
this finale was extremely violent all of a sudden. I didn't even think the show was
Thank
ever going
God,
to go
frankly.
that route. You said thank God.
To me, it needed it. It needed a punch because I felt like the entire time we were like practicing boxing and we were not getting out any actual matches. So finally, we had one in the very last episode. I think we needed it
Interesting.
desperately. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was such a big heel turn for this show, and
Mhm.
I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I was like, wow, this is visceral. Also, like the way they used the violence was very like it was like we turned into a Tarantino movie or something, which I
Oh
was
yes.
surprised about. Um, Yeah, honestly, what's funny though, I think it was the opposite for me. Like it was a little off-putting that it went so violent out of nowhere in this
Interesting.
show.
Yeah.
Like almost 2 seasons in, the most violence we get is at the end of season 2. I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, this is kind of weird. But yeah, I like the way they did it still. Yeah, if
I
that
like how
makes
you
sense.
brought up Tarantino. That very final shot where they just use the still and then they zoomed in on the still, leaving the
Yeah.
JPEG pixelation and stuff like that, or not pixelation, but the noise.
Mhm.
To me, I was like, that's Tarantino for sure. Like it's got the red hue over it. It's like so like that's that's one of those things where you're like, that's a good choice. That's well done. Nice,
Yeah.
even that
Yeah.
final sequence where he's like turning against his wife and gonna go with Helly. I thought like that is a really well shot scene where you could constantly see the wife in the background or constantly see Helly in the background. Wow,
Yeah.
nice. Ben Stiller's a hell of a director.
Absolutely. He really is. And he absolutely crushed it. I think to your point, cinematography is on point.
Yeah.
But I kind of love that you also stumbled over Helly's name because that's what tells any Mark that Audi Mark isn't on his side.
Right.
And so that was an amazing conversation. I think it's something we've been
A
waiting
highlight to
for
the
since
episode,
season one.
frankly. Yeah. For the
Yeah,
season.
definitely. I think it was a really, yeah, just like this cool moment. I was always wondering how they were going to do this, bringing it to this birthing center where I guess kids are born and that then go into the schools like Miss Wong did, like Cobell did. And so I was how they're going to do this. The flipping of the camera was unique technique, and it was very cool with also Mark stepping in and out
Right.
of the doorway into the balcony, and I loved it. Also, that conversation didn't go the way I expected, so that was another kind of nice surprise for me.
It was needed to show that the Innie and Outie Mark are different people. And as much as Outie Mark has been trying to pioneer or push this idea of like we can re-merge both sides with this experimental procedure, it's good to see that that's not necessarily what both sides want. So to have that kind of come out and then all of a sudden you're like, well, which side you're going to go with? And then it leads to that final shot. You're watching Marquez and you're like, yeah, man, there's no way you're going out that door. Like as much as I was asking him to, like, please go outside. She needs you. But it was like, I know where you're going, you know?
Yeah. Oh man, that's good. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of surprise, I think, in this, because you're right. I think they did need to show that they're very different people, but that shocked me. I was like, of course he's going to want to help him. Of course he's going to want to integrate. And you're like, oh wow, he really thinks he's going away. And because of that, or even if they do integrate, his small young brain or consciousness basically will get overtaken by Outie Marks.
Which was a big point of their conversation is like, you've had how many years and you'll always take over me. And then it leads to the question right away. I always love when good sci-fi does this. When you're like, where are you going, Mark? Where are you going? There is no place that's safe for you now. You can't stay this version of Mark. They're hunting you and you can't leave the Severance floor. So it's like, where are you going?
Yeah. The final shot, right?
The final shot. And you're with the boss. Like also who's like, all the resources in this company are going to be going to get her back. And your job is done. So really they could just shoot you. But all the resources are going to be to get her back. And so it's just kind of like, it's so fruitless. And it kind of reminds me of the end of a really good movie where like, it's kind of like, hey, all that joy you just had, it's fading away because you're realizing the situation that you just put yourself into. It was well done.
Yeah, it was well done. But I mean, it's funny because I had the same question at the end of season 1. I was like, now what? Where are they going to go? I was like, how the hell are they going to do this? How are they going to address that the outside world knows that the Innies hate it? And then they found this way to like revert it and flip it around and then still progress character moments on both sides of the coin. You know, like Dylan this season, seeing more about his outside life. Yeah. With like his wife and him, like they start drifting apart and his Innie always thinks he's a badass, but his Outie knows that he's kind of a failure or he just never feels that great about himself. And what they did there, I thought that was just amazing. Even in the end, like he can't even escape. You know, he tries to pull the heli move from season 1 and then is not able to leave because his Outie's like, no, you're in there. You're stuck. Every time you think you're trying to try to leave, I'm going to keep putting you back in there.
Well, to clarify, his Outie said, if you want to leave, you can. But he did tell him like, first off, I'm mad at you. Second off, I like that you're a part of me, which I think is something that all of us kind of realize. There's times where we're down on each other. But it would be nice to always know that there's a little fighter in us, you know, and that's kind of what he ran into. And I really like that. But he did give him the option. Like, if you want to quit, well, you'll quit. That's fine.
True. It's funny that like, you could taking his words for sure. But I just knowing what the Outie felt about the Innie makes me feel like it's kind of a false promise.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So like for sure. But it was just cool. Like the concept that even Ben Stiller was saying, you know, it's like, what other show or premise could you have yourself cheating on yourself?
Right.
It was such a unique way to look at how we deal with relationships. And, you know, as somebody who's been married now for 3 years, it's like, yeah, we're not the same as we were when we first started dating.
Right.
You know, the love is deeper, but it's undoubtedly changed. And I think that's such a cool way to kind of show that. And it almost give yourself, like, if I was going to put myself in Dylan's shoes, like a restart at our relationship, yet it doesn't take away from the other side of me that cherishes what we built now. Yeah. So it was, I just kind of love that. And then to see where he ends up at the end of the season, a hero again, kind of locking Mr. Milicic in there was like, God, man, he's a great character.
He is a great character. And I can't blame his wife too for the situation because she is seeing again the man she fell in love with the first time.
Yep.
And so it's like, I mean, to have that back, there are so many relationships that today you lose that, like you're saying, it changes over time, but to have the opportunity to see the person you fell in love with the first time would be invaluable. Yeah.
Absolutely. We, I want to kind of mosey around to everybody, but like Irving, right? So last episode, we see that him and Bert, they have this deeper, the connection kind of carries through even on the outside world.
Yes.
And I love that Irving kind of gets a little satisfaction to not run away. Like, I think he realizes he can't be with Bert,
Mhm.
but also that gives him peace. Like that gives him satisfaction. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
like the fact that I know he would want to in a way makes me feel like that's good enough and it can never happen. So I'm just going to leave.
Well, what I
What do
really
you think
liked,
on it?
yeah, what I liked out of it was the fact that Bert, I think, showed Irving that our love inside still exists outside. And he said that, like, I really love this idea where I'm a bad person. And there's the religious connotations that they talked about beforehand with this too. I'm a bad person, but there's a version of me that's good out there, just like we talked with Dylan too. Like, there's a version of me that's bold. There's a version of me that's good out there. That's the one you love. That's the one you fell in love with. And so he wants to protect Irving because he's like, I need you to stay alive because you're a person who knows me as a good person. And I know I'm going to hell. Like, I know I'm damned, but there's a person out there who thinks that I'm a decent person. And so that idea of like, I need to protect you because it protects the part of me. I mean, that's what love is really, I think, in the end, is just finding the best parts of each other.
Yeah, yeah, even through the bad. Absolutely. Right. Yeah, I like it too, where he's like, I wanted to be innocent again. And that's such it's just like a sweet sentiment. Like as you get older, you get jaded, you see more things, you feel more things, and then it just kind of falls apart. But yeah, I just love that the Irving smile, I guess, when he kind of turns away and then he walks on that train. It's just like he's on a better path. And I don't know if I can't see him not showing up in season 3, but it's like he could just disappear and
I would
that's
be happy
it,
with
right?
it too. Yeah. I think
it's crazy.
You don't ditch an acting talent like John Turturro. Boy, my English is not great today. But I think that smile was really nice because he had mentioned like love was just never in the cards for me. I never thought it would happen. And it did happen. So now it's like, boy, the future is so wide open for him now.
Right.
Love is on the table again.
Yeah. Cool. He was so great all season. He was so bold too. He like the way he kind of attacks Helly, but to kind of show, hey, she's not the real one. The way he kind of is just so honest with everybody. He sees things that people don't like. So I wonder who's going to fill that void. But I mean, he's showing Mark like Helly's not herself. Dylan, hey, we experienced something that we need to express in here. John Turturro just killed it. This is probably one of my favorite roles that I've seen him in. And I just love that he kind of got to ride off in the sunset. I guess Mark and Helly do too, but their future is definitely not as bright as his is.
I look forward to us doing Coen Brothers Month. It's coming eventually. I know it will. And oh boy, I've got a list for you. And Miller's Crossing is definitely on it. And that might be his best performances in Miller's Crossing.
Nice. Yeah. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. That's awesome.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Helly.
Yes. Helly, I just, God, great performance. I mean, there's not a bad performance in the show. Don't get me wrong. Great performance. I never trusted her after that first turn. Even at the end of this episode, I'm like, Mark, you don't know if Helly's lying again. Like, you've seen her come off that elevator. How easy would it be for her to be the wrong person again? Just to convince Mark not to leave. Like, that's exactly what she would want to happen. She doesn't want Mark to get out. And so it's just she's a complicated character that I just can't trust.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, yeah, she's technically one of the greatest enemies and yet his biggest love. And so I love that dynamic because it does put them in this crazy moral conundrum. It's like, what do we do? But the fact that we get her father down there, whatever, Egan, who basically comes down there and just says what he says to her, especially in this last episode. And then she says what's all on our minds, like, you're freaking weird, you suck. Which is probably what the Audi wants to tell him, but can't, and we get this really unique dynamic. The Audi goes to have breakfast with him. He doesn't eat. He's like, I want to watch you eat or something, which is so strange. And then she splits that egg into 6 parts, which, I've heard it described in so many different ways, but we see each one of those files that Mark's completed is a different innie that is being created.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. That then becomes created for Miss Casey or for Gemma. And it's like, it's cool. It's all there. I mean, even Helly or Helena or whatever has her own sides that are completely split apart in one being. And I just think, the way she even eats it is like, if she ate one slice of that, Helly would eat it in a different way. And then if there was
Right.
a different innie, she would eat in a different way. And it's like, it's just really cool. All the symbolism.
As a lifetime fat kid, I'm sitting here like, how the hell are you taking so damn long to eat that egg? Come on, throw some hot sauce on that bad boy and be done.
At least some salt or something. Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
know.
I was looking for the dad's name. He's not accredited as far as I could tell on IMDb, so I don't know the dad's
Wow.
name. But yeah, he did a good job of being super creepy. I didn't like.
Yeah,
yeah.
he's been creepy for the last couple seasons. He's at the end, I think, of last season. But
Yeah.
I love that moment because he says a few interesting things to her when he walks in the room. He says something about like, I see him in you, talking about like,
Yeah.
I see Kier. He also says, I never loved my daughter,
Mhm.
which just kind of confirms what we probably know about him. And it makes a lot more sense when you look at that scene where she comes up for breakfast and like the cold demeanor he has to her.
Yeah.
And yet what he actually is finding in Helly down below is that fight, is that
Right.
rebelliousness. And he actually does appreciate that. And that's what he probably wants in Helena above, but he can only find it in her severed self. So I think that is so cool. Interesting too.
And with the tools that they're gaining from the Miss Casey experiment, they could definitely just make that happen. I think he would do that to his daughter to make the perfect version of his daughter. The
Yeah.
thing we're seeing with Miss Casey, I think we now know what they were doing with this entire job is what was shutting off emotions to make the perfect employee, right? In my opinion, I think that's what it's like literally they're boxing off the 6 humors or whatever it was to make a perfect
Yeah.
employee. And they tested it by putting Gemma, so many different names for the same people, Gemma
Right,
in a
right.
room with
Mhm.
the most triggering possible thing, take apart this thing. I mean, that would trigger Gemma immediately, and she had no emotion for it. So they successfully did that thanks to Mark, who was able to recognize her the most. And that I think shows that they're just trying to create that perfect workforce that would just endlessly work.
Oh yeah, yeah. I also looked at it this way too, that they're also creating a way to sever you from any miserable thing in your life.
Yeah.
So beyond work too, like writing thank you notes. Like nobody likes writing a ton of thank you notes or being on a flight. Like if you're scared of flying. So I was like, wow, the applications now for this goes beyond work. So I felt like now you
Yeah.
could also you could sell this procedure to anybody out there so that somebody has one thing you don't want to do. Maybe yours is yard work. Mine is like cleaning the bathroom. I hate scrubbing the tub.
Right.
So yeah, like if I could sever off a piece of myself to go take 30 minutes to clean the whole bathroom, maybe that's worth it. And then you start extrapolating that. And then it's like, imagine you stop having to do every miserable thing in your life
Right.
for everybody. That would create a very weird and different world. And now your outie self is only getting to experience, hopefully, like the good side. But I think that's what Mark is showing is like, even though Lumon is maybe trying to do this and testing it through Gemma, it's not going to take away the pain of something that really, of what you remember it happened. Like, even though he said, I was hopefully protecting you, Innie Mark eventually feels that pain. Something's off. And
Something's
so,
off. Yeah. And I think that was the idea. Like they could shut off memories right now. But like what Mark was wanting in season 1 was to like forget his wife for just a part of the day so he could be a functional adult and work.
right.
And in doing that, that's why he went severed. So, but I think with the future, what they're trying to do is like, hey, you're mourning your wife. We could cut off that bad feeling and then you could continue. So instead of cutting off a memory, they can cut off a feeling now, I think is kind of what they would do.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to lean back on the, on like getting rid of miserable things because the other
Right.
thing I thought about is because remember there was a pregnant lady in season 1
Right. Yeah.
and his sister Devin goes up and was like, hey, remember we had babies together? But she didn't remember their conversation while she was pregnant. So
Mhm.
to me, like maybe she didn't want to remember the tough, terrible moments of going through pregnancy.
Yeah. I think that's what the cabin's for. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Is that where? Is that where she gives birth?
That's what the cabin is for, birthing. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was wondering, is that only for people who are guaranteed going into Lumon, like a Cobell, or is that for anybody who was pregnant and severed?
I took it as, hey, you go into the cabin like, oh, about to have a baby. Let me go into this cabin. Go into the cabin. You're a different person. Go through absolute hell. Come back out. Baby's in my arms. Sweet. That was fine.
Oh yeah. I could see that happening too. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Totally. But yeah, so I just think it's kind of crazy because it seems like it could expand beyond just work.
Mhm.
And that changes up completely the applications of that are limitless now.
Right, right.
So now it's not just, hey, you have a bad job. You're right. Maybe. Yeah. Well, I think that's the other thing too we see in Gemma. It's like, just because you can't remember you did that, there is a version of you that still had to experience it, and
Right.
you are torturing them. And man, that was yeah, it only kind of got pieced together for me at this finale. So I was like, man, that's just wild that they're doing that.
Yeah, they did a good job of kind of like bringing in Gem at a certain point and then showing this rigorous testing she's going through. And I
Mhm.
was holding my breath, man. I'm like, please, like he had to convince her to come out of that room. Like, please, hallway version of you be the Gemma. Like, if it
Right.
wasn't for that, like, and then that constant, like, we're escaping and then them both switching personalities as they're escaping that's when sci-fi and cinematography get to work in tandem to make something, and acting, honestly, to make something really
Mhm.
special. Like, that's really special TV to be able to do that.
Oh man, absolutely. They do something else that's super cool and unique in this one too, with the transition, which is when any Mark steps out of the cabin,
Yeah.
he's then brought immediately into the office.
Mhm.
So it was like from the cabin door in the office, which I don't think we've seen before. That was pretty unique. So I don't know. I just like really liked that kind of filmmaking thing, because it's like we've seen the transitions before, but
Yeah.
not like that. That was different.
Right. The only other time we've seen that is during the procedures when they had a little glimpse of like suddenly Mark's in the hallway when he was in his basement, type of thing like that. Or like,
Yeah.
but that was the first time of it being like a practically a useful tool, not a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just really, really freaking cool. And I thought that was just amazing. And then they finally bring it back to, we get Gwendolyn, I forgot what her name is from Game of Thrones, Brienne of Tarth.
Gwendolyn Christie, I think.
Yeah, she
Pretty
comes
sure.
back to, and I was wondering, I was like, man, that was kind of a bummer if it was just a one-off with her in
Right.
this season. And how many times has she had to sacrifice those baby goats?
Oh,
Yeah, it was miserable. But that, yeah, again, kind of saving him, saving the goat. There's also that joke in there that's like, I forgot what the goat's name was, like, this is Edgar. And he's
Yeah,
like,
Emily.
who's Edgar?
Yeah.
Was it?
Emily. I was
Emily,
ride or die
yeah.
for that goat, man. I would tell you right now, if that bastard had killed that goat, I would be like, "Where's this actor live?"
Right.
I was so ride or die immediately with that goat, just so stinking cute.
Yeah, I
Oh,
know. It is, but it also makes you wonder, like, what are they doing with that too? Like that, still, we didn't have answers for that. Which
Yeah.
the show, while it answers some of the bigger questions, it still kind of provides more questions, and I do love that because,
Yeah.
eventually, I don't know. It's just interesting. I want to know so much more about Lumen.
Let me kind of go on a little bit of another rant. I'm sorry, guys, but I think season 1 was so much better than season 2 because we had a clear, like, the mystery was driving the story, figuring out what the hell is going on. And then at the end, they got to break things up and mess things up a little bit. And I think that, like, the mystery didn't get in the way. It only helped the story. But in this version of it, I think the mystery got in the way too often. And like the whole Mark trying to like unite both sides, that happened for way too damn long and still didn't happen at the end. And then when they actually were like fighting about it, you find out like, oh no, he doesn't want that to happen, so it shouldn't happen now. But that was the thing they kept teasing like, oh, it happened and now it's cut to credits. So next episode he's gonna be fully combined. Nope, not yet actually. They did like 3 times. And there
Yeah.
were so many times where I thought like, you guys are really pushing for 9 episodes on something that could have been 6. You guys are like leaning so heavily on making a mystery box that you forgot to put a story around it that pushes the mystery box forward. But I will say in season 1, I think they did a masterful job of that. So that was really hard for me to enjoy this. And I'm just like, I mean, I get that that's beautiful and all, but god damn, get to a story. I'm so,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite the take. That's a
I
hot
know
take, man.
absolutely nobody agrees with me because this morning has been just like, that's the greatest show ever. And I'm like, have you watched anything in the last 2 weeks that's been coming out? God.
Yeah, I mean, luckily we get to watch a lot for sure. But I mean, yeah, I'm sitting around a dinner table last night with friends, and they're just like, it was interesting, quite the contrary, I think, from everybody else's perspective, which was like, it took me like I couldn't really get into season 1. And honestly, I was one of those people too. I said it on another podcast where I was like, I watched the first episode and I was like, I don't think this is for me. And I bailed on it for weeks until people were like, no, you got to get back into it. And then I jumped into it. And once I got past episode 3, I was like, holy crap, this is good. But yeah, even last night with all these friends, they were like, I could not get into season one. This season has been nonstop action and like seeing what they're doing and how they're all having to just like figure out their life now that they realize there are other options for life. You
Yeah.
know, it was like season one, they didn't realize that there was anything on the outside. You're literally watching little kids who all they know is what the teacher tells them or what they can see from the playground.
Right.
And as they get older, they start seeing more movies and reading more books. And, you know, the world seems bigger and it seems more possible for them. And that's how I felt in this episode. And also, like, both sides of these personalities are starting to realize that they have their own lives. And how do you now grip with that? How do they? Yeah, I loved kind of the heel turn again of Innie Mark being like, no, I don't want to integrate after thinking it's the obvious choice for most of the season. I thought that was, it's kind of like, for me, it felt pretty bold. And I just love how they were also getting heated at each other and seeing Adam Scott basically act against himself in two different ways and get mad at himself. It was just like, wow, this is really good. So yeah. I mean, hey, if it doesn't hit you, it doesn't hit you.
That's, and how many times have you and I, agreed and disagreed on things, especially against other people too? Like, we live in an online world where we're constantly discussing, and that's the whole point of everything. That's the whole reason podcasts exist, really, is to discuss and disagree.
Absolutely.
But that's, I want to go back to, like, this is very beautiful. It's very well done. Knowing how Ben Stiller has, I think it's 4 seasons already written in it for himself. Nobody else knows about it but him. Where do you think we go with these characters after this?
Yeah, I think that is the multi-million-dollar question, because I don't know. I genuinely don't know. As to your point, they sail off. He chooses, all we've wanted for Mark is to get back Gemma. He finally gets Gemma, and Innie says, you know what? I don't care what Audi wants. I want what I want. And he goes and he leaves Gemma behind, which is heartbreaking. Then he gets with Helly and they run off. But yes, kind of take it back to what you said at the beginning of this episode. It's like, where did they go? Yeah. You're right. She's still the CEO. Does her Audi ever let her become an Innie again? Does the Innie decide never to leave? Like, is she forced out? Do they go deeper in Lumon? Are there more secrets down there? And I just kind of love that. I don't know, but I think more importantly, it's what it showed us about the founders and the work. I think that's the part where I'm the most interested in, because we get an animatronic Kier that's standing there. And even though it seemed like a pre-recorded thing, also the animatronic thing brings us back to episode 1 when the replacement workers were there. And the girl says, are your founders just like wax statues? Because we had animatronic ones. And then we fast forward to end of the season and he's an animatronic one. But also, while the line seemed pre-recorded, as soon as Mr. Milicic says something different, kind of pushing back against the dialogue, the animatronic kind of snaps at him, pushing back, making me think that there is a consciousness inside of that animatronic. Yeah. Which also makes me wonder, is the board all this consciousness of a bunch of different founders or other people?
I presume,
are they real people?
Because with Lumen so worried about being able to capture personalities, I presume that all the founders are actually just rattling around in there. And the old man, who's probably next to join the board, what in these tests make that more viable for him? Like, I feel like there's something there that maybe he's like, oh, I want to be able to separate the board more, whatever it may be. But there's definitely something with that animatronic, which I thought was well done. Yeah. And by the way, that actor, so it wasn't just like a CGI animatronic. Mark Geller is the actor for that animatronic. They actually like modeled it off of him and stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, so good. I think we'd also be remiss if we don't talk about Mr. Milicic, because it was like
fantastic actor. Holy cow.
So good. We obviously got this big personality change and from like being a person within the system with Cobell to seeing them for what they are and seeing that they didn't care about her. She dedicated her whole life to Lumon. Yeah. She was fully bought into the cult of it. She also created the severance procedure. Yeah. Yeah. And she then has now completely changed from being completely on their side to, Mark, I'm going to help you separate from them and we're going to save Gemma, which was a huge change. But similarly, it felt like Mr. Milicic was on that path. They give him this painting this season that had Kier kind of in blackface and painted as black man, which all just, it felt icky. All these things that they're telling him, he goes to the other black person that works at Lumen. He's like, how did you feel about it? And she won't give him a straight answer.
Oh, but her eyes, I mean, boy, her eyes were telling you the real story.
100%.
What a performance to be able to do that. I mean, it's not a big role, but she handled it well.
Very true. That brings us to the end.
Yeah.
This big conversation.
Well, I want to, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but the entire season they were belittling him, where even like his computer screen wouldn't change. It stayed with Cobell's name, and it was like belittling him and just being like, you're not a full Lumen member, which there's race involved with that. There's just corporate greed and stuff like that. We saw exactly, Cobell go through hell and stuff like that, and she was fully bought in. But with him, it was slowly start to break him more and more, I think. And the fact that he doesn't have respect from his own employees, which, hey, you don't deserve it, whatever. But that conversation he had with that, what's his name? Hampton, having with Hampton, I think it is.
Or is it Drummond or something?
Drummond, maybe it's Drummond. I guess this list is not full. But anyways, where he's saying, like, he's forcing him to say sorry instead of like a bigger word. And that is so belittling. And I mean, I hate to bring this up because I know I'm not I'm not the most educated person on this, whatever it is. It's not the right term for it, but nevertheless, it reminds me of the slave master slave relationship in that very much like you're not allowed to read thing. Like seeing what's in Milchick is like, oh, you're trying to quote pretend to be smart when you don't have that capability. And I, a member of the higher Egan stuff, and that belittling aspect is, God, it makes you feel like you're a tool, not a person. And to then have that being done by a damn tool standing next to you, that robot with the animatronic, is how Milchick didn't fully snap. I don't know, but he's towing that company line as long. I mean, season 3, I think that's by far the easiest prediction. He's turning on Lumen.
Right. And that's kind of where I was going with it. Like that conversation, was, it was just so intense. And it's like, do we, he so badly wanted to be in that position. And you were like, you said he didn't get respect. He's not getting respect from above. Obviously there's race involved, but then there's also, he's not getting respect from below. But the same thing was with Harmony in season 1. She wasn't getting respect from above or below either. And it just kind of shows how Lumen treats anybody that would be considered a minority, whether you're a woman or you're black, even children in this case, Miss Wong. I think it's really kind of telling, the way that maybe a corporation treats their employees who are of minority. So, which is kind of poignant, when we have this big discussion of DEI and everything. So, I'm very curious to see how his change is going to be, or if he's going to constantly be pushing himself to stick with it because he sacrificed everything. Is he going to have a different response than Harmony did? So, man, but Mr. Milchick towards the end was just fantastic. Even the dancing too with the marching band. I loved the marching band. I'm like, how the hell does this make sense? Like all of them are severed to just play music downstairs. That's wild. Too much.
I thought it was badass looking, but I'm like, man, they could have ended this about 5 minutes ago. Like it was just like this is really cool. And I'm like, this is an hour and a half episode. You guys could have cut this part down a little bit. Like it's neat, but we don't need all of this, I don't watch, if I'm watching Game of Thrones and they just had a solid 10 minutes of dragons flying around in a circle, I'd be like, okay, let's get back to people talking, I guess.
Yeah. That's true. I liked it because they use it at the end. And when Milicic escapes, like he's like, fuck off, Mr. Milicic, because he has the band on his side. So I was like, oh, cool. Like they were able to get through to them to realize like they're also trapped down there.
What do you think about Milchick trying to turn against Lumen while he's not getting any respect from people that are supposed to be a subordinate? Like to turn against Lumen, he would be joining their side unless he ends up like Lobel, who's on the out. Lobel? Gosh, what am I thought?
Cobell.
Cobell, thank you. Who's on the outside, whose whole goal is just to destroy Lumen from the outside. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we got to see how it works out. I mean, because she didn't even realize how used she was till the 8th episode, which I think for me, that was kind of the weakest episode of the season. And yet now I get it, because it was also cool to see what Lumen looks like to people or to cities or towns that they leave behind. Maybe they had like this big production company or, whatever they were manufacturing there. And all of a sudden they're like, no, we're going to do it somewhere else. And they completely leave the town in ruins. And just the way that town looked, it was beautiful. Maybe that's where they got Cold Harbor from in the first place. There's icebergs in there. Now you fast forward to this final episode, and there's that moment where someone is talking to Mr. Milicic on the phone, and it's Mark. I think that actually this might have been in the penultimate episode, and he's just like, "Why, Mark, aren't you?" No. Mark says to him, "It's just work, right, Mr. Milicic? We don't have to worry about it that much." And you could see how destroyed that makes him.
Yeah,
because he's made his whole life this job, and he stops and he looks up at that iceberg. And he just realizes, like, what am I doing? Am I just the tip? Is there more to me than just this work persona? Like, he is having a conflict of his own personal self that I'm like, am I more than, just the tip of this? Nice. And I was like, wow, this imagery is beautiful. And it just kind of perfectly encapsulates what this person might be feeling without telling us, just literally showing us. Mm-hmm. I thought that was so smart and so well done. So yeah, I think I could see it happening, but he has, I think, a lot more stacked up against him in some ways than Cobell does. So I think it's going to be even a harder turn for him unless he does act up as well and gets fired. That's the only way I can see him really turning because he's so deep.
Right. Yeah, I think he has to snap and take an action against somebody, the board or whatever, and then that'll get him fired, and then he'll see. But I like that whole iceberg thing because, he rides a motorcycle around, and I always think like he looks dope on a motorcycle. He's just a dope guy. By the way, he has an interview with Stephen Colbert. You got to watch it because his personality is very much the dancing guy and not what you normally see. So it's fun to see him actually like have fun. But yeah, I just I wonder if he has a personality outside of being an employee, and will he want to pursue that? That would be interesting to see.
He's got to. I mean, the dude's ripped. He's like buff as hell. So I would assume he's like
working out somewhere.
right. Like, is he at the gym most nights? And then, he seems like one of those dudes that wakes up at 4 and then he's in the office by like 5.
What do you lift, bro? One of those guys that I see at the gym all the damn time.
Totally. But like, he's a good dancer. He seems like somebody who might love dancing. And he's such an interesting character. So I'm so curious to see what happens with him. But I think we're slowly seeing how far Lumon has to go to make people change, to really want to shift, whether you're subjecting yourself into it by severed people or people who volunteered themselves in a sense like Cobell or, Mr. Milicic. So
yeah,
it's interesting, man. I'm so curious to see how this all plays out with the board and with Destiny and with Legacy and also like, what is Lumon's ultimate goal with all of this? It's interesting. We see all the hell that everybody's been going through, but why? Like, what, now that he's completed that last file, what are they going to announce next? And how does that then affect everybody that's involved in this story?
Yeah, I think you make the perfect employees personally. I think that's the idea, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Lumon spins this. Clearly that office is going to be out of control. So I'm sure they're going to try to shut down the entire office. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. I mean, now that Mark's done, why would you need the entire office, I presume? Yeah, it'll be an interesting future. I'm so glad that we have this podcast to talk this out. I literally, I normally write the review for our website. I know Geek Freaks doesn't have the review out yet because I'm like, I got to wait till I talk to Thomas about this because I'm all mixed up on this. Like, I dislike it, but I recognize how good it is, that whole thing. So I'm glad we're talking this out. This helps a bunch. Yeah.
I'm good, man. I have definitely felt that way about other shows too. And you've had to explain to me. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Okay. I didn't even think about that. So it is nice. And I think there's so much more complexity to this story than on the surface. Right. And it's in some ways it's so simple. If you could cut yourself off from your work self, and we both had jobs we've loved, we both have jobs we kind of hated. And if you just shut yourself off and just go do it. But also it's like, why would you do it? What are you trying to run away from? Who are you trying to run away to? Who do you want to be? Who would you be if you didn't have all this experience? I love that it explores these ideas. And then it's a group of dysfunctional people that all have their own traumas that they don't know why they're all there, but they start realizing there's a reason that they're there and that they're happy to do it together. Yeah. And I thought that was just such a cool thing. Even Dylan coming in at the end to save Helly, it was like, she was like, wow, I'm glad you're here. It's like they are like kind of a family. They've created their own lives down there. When she ends up basically saying like, I know you had sex with Helena to any Mark, but like, I want to have my own experience. It was just like an interesting take. And there's another thing I'm thinking. They had 2 times where it was probably unprotected sex. What happens if Helly gets pregnant?
Off to the cabin.
Right, maybe, but like which
Yeah.
Helly does that? Does she also now get severed? Is there a world where Mark goes with her? Like, and which Mark? And there's just so much that it still has to be done where I'm like, I don't even know if they could do it in season 3, but I just thought the complexity of all this and where the story could go is amazing.
I wonder. I think too with that. Oh, here we go. This is the full cast list. Here we go. Okay, so James Egan's played by Michael Cyberry. I was like, I'm on the wrong episode here. No shit. But I
Oh.
think what we could see out of Helly, especially with James's opinion of her, is that they're gonna try to force her to be the outie. I think the Egan family is gonna see too much value in that, especially her dad will. And then at that point, like if she is pregnant, then it's like, oh, here we go. Now let's try to implement the severance stuff that we just learned from these experiments onto a baby that's being born. I think that's kind of the next phases for all this. It'll be interesting. I mean, like, man, this is wild experiment. Hopefully, we don't have to wait another 4 years for it or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I just thought this was really well done, and there's so many elements to this. It went down so many paths this season that I didn't expect. Bert and Irving again. I hate to keep going back to this, but just that outing moment where he meets his other husband and they have this confrontation. It's just really really interesting. And man, I just, yeah, I think they could wrap up things nicely in season 3, but I hope they don't. I hope we get a season 4 and this just keeps expanding. Maybe none of this means anything and Lumen just goes on. The fact that Drummond got shot in the elevator, also the scientist, as he's pulling Gemma into the elevator, he says, "You're going to kill them all." Like who?
Yeah, that was very interesting. Yeah.
Right, like who the innies, the outies, like the board, who is he talking about? So there's still so much to dissect and go into, and there's so many levels of Lumen we probably haven't even seen. So yeah, I have no idea where they go from next season.
And we need to explore the cult aspect of this whole thing too, because that's one thing we got with that the Cobell episode, is that we got more into the cults, and I think that's a big reason. I think it's a theme that sadly is becoming more and more relevant, where people start to worship billionaires for no apparent reason, and even if they're punished, even if they're bad for them. And I think that is going to be explored. Like, why are you guys worshiping these people? What are they giving you for that? And because I mean, like, absolutely everything is like too clear. I mean, they really just fully, it's a religion. And then like that's the other thing. People online were like, well, we know by these dates that this is actually taking place in like 2035. Why is every car from the 90s? Why are all the screens from like 90s and stuff like that? So there's something there with the technology too. It's not like they decided to follow this cult instead of going this way, and it messed up technology or something.
Yeah. One theory that I've heard that I really like, and we've gotten some credence to this season, is that it all goes back to the Civil War. There's a certain term that they use that is a Civil War term, or from like a Civil War poet. And basically, we also see that there's like a painting of Keir in like a Confederate uniform.
Yeah, they're all kind of that actually era. You're right.
Yeah. So some people think it's like revisionist history or historical fiction, where instead of the North winning in the Civil War, it was the South.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And so
the milkshake thing blowing my mind now, because think of how much more implications there are with that.
Exactly.
Woo!
Yep. Exactly. So even more so why he would be so subservient, why he would be so, just agreeable. And why he'd even feel more honored to be there, right? Because if his people didn't have freedom, now he has been this kind of slave who's elevated to a higher up in Lumen. He's not going to want to lose that.
And then maybe they're trying to make new slaves that won't rebel back anymore.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Boy, that's a theory right there. Son of a gun. See, this is why we got to have this podcast, guys. Now you can go to work tomorrow and think this is your idea. Come on, pitch it up, guys. Come on, sell it up.
Exactly. So, I think that they're playing with a lot of interesting elements, and there's so much subtext. On the surface, it's, are you going to go save your wife? Are you going to choose this path or this path? Right. But below that, I think there's just so many things it's kind of speaking to culturally. Again, work culture, slavery, corporation worship, CEO worship. It's like, it's really kind of deep, and I dig the hell out of it for it.
And on top of that, like I said before, it is crafted as a masterpiece. performances, cinematography, the score hits every time. Their choices on some like bold England, London pop punk songs when they're running, I'm just like, that's a great choice. I don't know why. I never would have made it myself, but that's why you hire somebody who does.
Yeah.
Everybody on this cast, even Sarah Bach, who just plays Miss Hong, which I keep Miss Wong, it's spelled Hong, whatever.
Yeah.
Her performance as a kid, I'm like, damn, like even this kid, I feel so bad for this kid all of a sudden who I hated in the first episodes.
Right.
Everybody nails their job.
Yeah, totally. There's another kind of Easter egg in there. The cure that she uses to smash the game is like the cure before, which was like the woman cure CEO versus like one of the most celebrated cure. So some people were saying like there's some context to that. So I think like everything in the show seems purposeful, but it doesn't make sense yet. And so for me, that's why I'm like, God, I want to know what that's about.
Oh yeah, you know what? She had to sacrifice the toy. I wonder if that's what the goats are for too. Is like you always have to sacrifice something, so they keep the goats around for that.
Yeah, maybe, but what?
Who knows? Oh god, my brain. I just want Daredevil when I know he's gonna punch somebody. Let's go back to the
Hey man, even Daredevil's getting deep too. Looking at like the law structure and everything. Yeah. So I think these projects, kind of across the board, is speaking to something we're seeing in life and society. And people are like, don't bring politics or all that stuff into life, but it's like life imitates art, art imitates life, and I think that's what we're getting from these shows.
And both these shows and a lot of other shows were filmed 2 years ago, or like written at least 2 years ago. So it's like it just is an evergreen problem that they're seeing rise, and they write stories for it. It's not directly against you. Don't drop reviews.
Yeah.
Everybody likes to review bomb things. That to me, okay, guys, that wraps up Severance in my opinion. It was a hell of a series. I mean, what a great job by everybody involved. What is your score for this one?
Yeah, I mean, I really dug it. Not perfect to me either. I thought it was a little messy. I'm gonna go with a 4 out of 5, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
So I'm going with a 3 out of 5. So I think if we find the medium, let's go 3.5. Are you cool with 3.5?
Yep. But I want it to be known that I'm as solidly at a 4.
All right. I'll give you the 4 on this one. I'm sure there's plenty of times where we've gone up for me. We'll go 4 on this.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm glad we talked this out. It was needed. We're going to be talking about it again on the next Geek Freaks, guys. And we'll see what Jonathan has to say, which I'm sure he'll be like, what the hell is this, dude? So I think I might have some... No, I don't know. He's been really enjoying it. So
that's cool.
We'll have to see how it goes. But watch White Lotus and Daredevil, guys. That's where I'm having all my fun.
Yeah, both those shows are phenomenal too. They all just give us a little something different. So it's a great time in TV, man. We're super lucky.
Righteous Gemstones too. Oh, anyways, all right, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for hanging out with us, and make sure you guys drop a review on both Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Aloha.